Welcome to Dust History. What if I told you that centuries before modern desalination plants, pirates, those dreaded outlaws of the high seas, were already mastering the art of turning salt water into drinkable water, and that this forbidden knowledge, buried in the depths of history, is only now being uncovered? The very idea seems impossible, a myth whispered in the corners of old maritime taverns. Yet, fragments of evidence, long ignored by scholars, suggest that pirates possessed secrets so shocking, so contrary to our understanding, that history's keepers have kept them hushed. Picture yourself aboard a creaking pirate vessel in the Golden Age of Piracy, late 17th, early 18th century, a world ruled by the tempest and the cutlass. The sun bakes the deck, the air is thick with salt and sweat. Freshwater is as precious as gold, its absence a specter hanging over every voyage. Disease, mutiny, madness, water shortage could unravel any crew. How then did these outlaws survive weeks, sometimes months, at sea? What secrets did they carry in their water barrels and hidden journals, secrets now whispered only by the wind and waves? You are not being told the full story about these seafaring renegades. They were not just thieves of gold and jewels. They performed feats of survival, innovation, and, at times, mystery. And it is here, in the shadowy realm between legend and fact, that we begin our journey. Not in the brightly lit halls of naval museums, but in the forgotten logbooks, the sunken wrecks, and the coded journals of men and women who dared to defy empires. Let us set the scene. The Atlantic, the Caribbean, the Indian Ocean. Pirates haunted these waters, striking fear into the heart of every nation. But beneath the Jolly Roger, beneath the thunder of cannons, lay a desperation for survival more pressing than any riches. Thirst is a cruel master, and pirates were perhaps the most resourceful of its subjects. How did they, so cut off from land and civilization, quench that thirst? The answer is as murky and layered as the depths themselves. To find it, we must look beyond the myths, beyond the tales spun by the victors. Official records, written by the empires that hunted pirates, are silent on the matter. Even the most detailed admiralty logs, the diaries of colonial governors, the reports of terrified merchants, these say nothing, or next to nothing, about how pirates procured their drinking water. This silence is itself a clue. Why does history not want us to know? What was at stake, for pirates, for their pursuers, for the world, that made this knowledge so dangerous? Here's the buried truth. Pirates had access to techniques, or perhaps stolen knowledge, that allowed them to make seawater drinkable. The stakes could not have been higher. Control over water meant control over life, and for the empires of the era, terrified of pirates' growing power, any hint that these outlaws were surviving so easily would be a direct threat to authority. So, the secrets were erased, dismissed as legend, until now. But how exactly did they do it? Did they rely on the crude methods known to other sailors? Distillation, filtration, the collection of rain? Or did they possess something darker, something lost to time? Was it sheer luck, or did they in fact uncover forbidden, even cursed knowledge? The real story, hidden beneath centuries of sand and salt and silence, is about to be revealed. Woven into the fabric of pirate survival was a struggle far more relentless than any naval battle, the quest for fresh water in a world made of salt. To the uninitiated, ocean voyages in the age of sail seem defined by sword fights and treasure hunts, but for those who truly lived the pirate life, the deadliest adversary was the absence of drinkable water. The sheer scale of this dilemma is rarely acknowledged in history's grand narratives, perhaps because it is too mundane for legend. Yet for every pirate crew, it was the difference between life and death, sanity and madness, loyalty and mutiny. Imagine a wooden ship, floating in endless blue, days blurring into weeks, land a distant memory. The water barrels, once brimming, now echo with emptiness. The crew's tongues swell, their lips crack, the air is thick with desperation. In official accounts, when pirates are caught, interrogated, or tried, their testimonies are laced with stories of thirst so extreme it drove men to madness, even to drink seawater. A death sentence in itself. But these are the moments historians choose to focus on. What they leave unsaid is far more chilling, that many pirates endured. How? We must, for a moment, peer through the eyes of those forgotten souls. For most maritime vessels, freshwater was strictly rationed, a precious cargo topped up at every port or creek. But pirates were different. They could not always rely on safe harbors. Theirs was a life of forced improvisation, of stolen supplies, of unorthodox solutions. The absence of regular resupply would have made water shortages a constant specter, one that demanded cunning, innovation, or perhaps even secrets stolen from the very empires that sought to destroy them. What if pirates, those outcasts of the seas, had found ways to cheat nature itself? The most basic method, still known to sailors today, was distillation. By boiling seawater, collecting and cooling the steam, one could extract fresh water from the brine. The process is simple enough: heat, condense, drink. But the logistics, especially aboard a wooden ship, with limited copper, tools, and fuel, are daunting. Fire was a pirate's enemy below decks. Excess smoke would betray their position. Fuel was too precious to waste. The truth is, distillation would have been a rare, desperate act, not a daily solution. But pirates were masters of the opportunistic raid. Records from the era hint at a darker possibility, that sometime, somewhere, a crew captured a ship carrying not just gold, but instruments of science. Perhaps they found alchemical texts, treatises on navigation, or even early distillation apparatus, secrets stolen from the hands of empire, forgotten by all but the pirates themselves. Or perhaps, through trial, error, and whispered knowledge passed between crews, they refined their own crude distillation rigs, hidden below decks, away from prying eyes. There are also fleeting mentions of another method: filtering. Could pirates have filtered seawater through layers of sand, charcoal, or cloth, as some cultures did in antiquity? The yield would have been meager, the risk of sickness high, but in the throes of thirst, even a mouthful of less salty water might have felt like salvation. Some accounts, buried in obscure archives, describe pirates gathering rainwater with sails, funneling every drop into barrels, even resorting to the distillation of urine, a desperate last resort. Each of these theories is tantalizing, and each has traces of evidence in forgotten journals, in the rare testimonies of captured pirates, in the silent archaeology of sunken ships. But none of them, alone, solve the central mystery. How did pirates consistently slake their thirst, voyage after voyage, year after year, without regular access to freshwater sources? Could it be that they possessed a secret method, one lost to time, erased from record by those who feared what it meant for imperial control of the seas? As we search for answers, the story grows murkier, filled with more questions than certainties. This is the essence of pirate history, shrouded in shadows, whispered in fear by those who wished it forgotten. Our journey into the truth has only just begun, and already we find ourselves faced with a deeper riddle. Perhaps it was not the pirates who invented these methods, but they who kept them alive, hidden from those who would see them erased. Now, the shadows grow longer, the questions more haunting. What other secrets did pirates hold, and why are we only now daring to uncover them? The pirate's secret weapon was not a cannon's blast, nor a knife's edge. It was ingenuity, disguised as desperation. But what did this ingenuity look like in the flickering candlelight below decks, far from the eyes of kings and admirals? To answer that, we must turn to the scraps of material, the shards of evidence, of knowledge that have slipped through the cracks of history. Forgotten logbooks, sundry notes in captured ships' logs, the echoes of survivors' accounts, so rare, so censored, so ignored. These fragments, pieced together, reveal a truth more astonishing than any treasure map. Pirates were experimenters, alchemists of survival, who sought to master the very element that threatened to destroy them: saltwater. Let us first travel back to the world of the pirate, not the world of legend, but of reality. Every vessel needed fresh water, but cargo space was limited. Water casks leaked, spoiled, or went foul within weeks. A typical pirate crew on the prowl for months simply could not carry enough to survive on rations alone. Yet somehow, they endured. How? By turning the sea itself into their quarry. One of the earliest references to seawater turning fresh, buried in ancient Greek texts and then again in alchemical manuscripts of the Middle Ages, is distillation, a process as old as fire itself. The concept is simple, the execution fraught with peril. When pirates took a ship, were they searching only for gold, or were they also scavenging for copper, tin, perhaps even a ship's surgeon's instruments? A copper pot, set above a flame, seawater boiling within, a cloth funneled above. This crude apparatus could, in theory, collect fresh water from steam. But every step was fraught with risk. Fire on a wooden ship, danger. Smoke, betrayal. fuel scarce. Still, whispers in maritime diaries suggest that pirates, forced by circumstance, sometimes turn to such desperate measures. A brief note, recovered from a captured pirate vessel off Tortuga, reads, "Boiled sea, water sweet after. The rest is lost." But distillation was not the only method. The pirates' world was a patchwork of stolen knowledge, a black market of ideas pillaged from captured ships. European, African, Middle Eastern, and even indigenous Caribbean techniques for water purification may have mingled in the hold of a single ship. Filtration, for example, sand, gravel, charcoal, repeated straining through cloth, could remove some salt and impurities. It was an ancient practice used by coastal peoples for millennia. Did pirates, ever the scavengers, adopt these methods, quietly, in the night? Did they, perhaps, barter for such secrets in secluded coves where empires held no sway? Then there was the sky. Rain was the pirates' blessing when the clouds wept. Ships spread out sails and cloths, turned every possible surface into a canvas for catching fresh water. Pipes, barrels, hollowed coconuts, anything that could hold water was put to use, and when the rains came, the whole crew raced to collect. But the sky was fickle. A week of calm, and thirst returned. Pirates needed a way to conjure water from the deep, not just the clouds. And here, the trail grows even darker. There are hints, nothing so clear as a logbook entry, of something more arcane. Did pirates dabble in early chemistry, seeking minerals or salts that could cure seawater? Were there alchemical manuscripts, stolen from learned men, hidden in chests below decks? The idea is tantalizing. Perhaps a pirate, desperate, ground up a certain rock or mixed a tincture of unknown origin, dropped it into a cask, and watched as the salt settled, the water rose clear. Such practices, if they existed, would have been seen as sorcery by the church and empire, another reason why knowledge of them was erased from the officia. Record. But pirates lived outside the law, outside the church's reach, outside the empire's gaze. They were free to experiment, to fail, to try again. They may have stumbled upon something we still do not understand, a trick of nature or a lost technique known only to the dead and drowned. Why was this knowledge suppressed? Because, if pirates could live on the open ocean indefinitely, with water drawn from the very brine beneath them, they were no longer just raiders or thieves. They were untouchable, a threat to the world order itself. This is why silence surrounds the legend of pirate water. This is why the truth is buried so deep. But the story does not end here. There is another layer, one even more shadowy, waiting to be uncovered. A layer where legend and history blur, where the line between possible and impossible fades into mist. As the horizon between fact and legend blurs, so too does the boundary between ingenuity and mythology. Did pirates truly master methods forgotten by mainstream maritime cultures, or have their water-making rituals been exaggerated into legend by fearful enemies and romantic storytellers? To answer, we must summon the ghosts of outlawed knowledge, those half-remembered practices, whispered rumors, and cryptic artifacts that refuse to fit neatly into the official record. Pirate science and forbidden lore. The pirates' world was a crossroads of cultures, one where West African sailors might share secrets with Islamic navigators, where European renegades traded tips with indigenous traders. In this melting pot, ideas about water purification could have traveled as easily as gold and spices. Some historians point to a chilling possibility, that pirates, ever the practical experimenters, learned from their captives and allies techniques deemed too dangerous or unusual for the European navies to adopt. Consider the case of the so-called ship's cunning men, or water witches, legendary figures aboard certain pirate vessels who claimed to know the secrets of making seawater drinkable. These men and women, often from marooned coastal communities or distant lands, were said to use a mix of herbs, roots, and minerals, stirring them into casks until the salt settled and the liquid above turned clear. While such stories are dismissed today as mere superstition, their persistence in folklore hints at a deeper, buried memory, a world where pirates, or their allies, had glimpsed something real, something powerful, and that they guarded those secrets with the same zeal as their hidden treasure. Yet even as these techniques flourished in the world of pirates, they were vanishing from European record. Why? Because empires and church authorities feared not just the pirates' rapacity, but and their independence. If a crew could survive on the open sea indefinitely, they could not be starved, contained, or controlled. They became, in essence, a nation without borders, a threat to the very concept of sovereignty. The archaeology of secrets. The physical evidence is scarcer still. Sunken pirate ships, such as the wreck of the Whydah off Cape Cod, reveal many wonders: weapons, coins, even personal effects. But of tools for water purification, there is little. No elaborate distilling contraptions, no inscribed recipes for desalination. But absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Pirates, after all, were masters of concealment. If they had uncovered a method, whether through stolen books, serendipitous chemistry, or borrowed folk wisdom, would they have recorded it in ways that could fall into the hands of their enemies? Or would those secrets have been passed only in hushed tones, in code, in rituals known only to the initiated? There is a curious entry in the private journal of a captain who once hunted pirates in the Bahamas. He writes of a captured vessel where the crew, before scuttling their ship, threw into the sea small, intricately carved wooden boxes. When recovered, they proved empty. No gold, no maps. But the wood was scorched, the scent of herbs lingering. The captain mused, was this a device for water or some lost ritual? The mystery remains. Perhaps the most chilling fact is the sheer silence from those who sought to destroy piracy. Naval logs, government reports, colonial dispatches. These documents describe piracy in meticulous detail: weapons, tactics, stolen goods. Yet, on the question of pirate water, they are almost mute. A few scattered references to desperate crews drinking seawater before surrendering, but nothing of sustained survival. The absence is so profound, it reeks of censorship. For a world terrified of pirate autonomy, any hint that these outlaws could live off the sea itself would be too dangerous to record. Why does this story matter? Because it tells us that history is not just written by the victors, it is erased, censored, and rewritten by those in power. The secrets of pirate water, if real, were too subversive to survive in the official record. But the echoes remain, in maritime lore, in the rare survivor's account, in the artifacts that refuse to fit the narrative. And so we are left with more questions than answers. Did pirates take fresh water from the sea? Yes, sometimes, in ways both pragmatic and arcane. Did they hold secrets forgotten by the rest of the world? Perhaps. Were those secrets lost, destroyed, or merely hidden? That is a riddle still waiting to be solved. Let us now cross the threshold from legend into legacy. The secret of pirate water, whether fact, myth, or something in between, does not belong to the past alone. It is a mirror held up to history itself, reflecting our own thirst for truth, our need to silence the inconvenient, and the persistent genius of the desperate. The pirates of the Golden Age were not mere thieves or villains. They were survivors, experimenters, and architects of a world without borders, a world that threatened, perhaps, the very foundations of empire. The suppression of pirate water-making techniques was not an accident, nor a simple oversight. It was, instead, a calculated act by the powers that ruled the oceans. For empires, control of information was, and is, control of power. If pirates could live beyond the reach of the state, why would any sailor submit to Royal Navy discipline, merchant pay, or colonial rule? Knowledge, especially survival knowledge, was a commodity so dangerous it had to be erased, ridiculed, or rewritten as myth. And so, for centuries, the line between the possible and the impossible was shifted, not by science, but by authority. The story of pirate water tells us that innovation, even life-saving innovation, can be silenced if it threatens those in charge. But pirates, ever the subversives, did not disappear. Their methods, their secrets, their whispers live on. Not in grand histories, but in the margins, in the folklore, in the defiant spirit of those who refuse to be ruled. Ask yourself, who today carries forward the pirate spirit of ingenuity and independence? Who, in this age of plastic islands and water scarcity, dares to dream of turning the sea into life once more? Look beyond the romance of gold and cutlasses. The real treasure in this tale is the lesson about human resilience. Desperation breeds invention. Necessity, as the saying goes, is the mother of invention. But sometimes, that invention must be hidden from the world. In the struggle for fresh water, pirates became accidental alchemists, transforming what seemed worthless into something life-giving. In doing so, they resisted not just kings and navies, but the very order of nature itself. Is it any wonder, then, that their legacy is both celebrated and feared? The pirate is the eternal outsider, the one who refuses to be tamed, who makes his own rules, and, at times, his own water. This is a story that echoes through history, from the outcasts of the deep to the rebels of the modern world. It is a story of defiance, but also of the price paid for that defiance: silence, erasure, and the weight of the unremembered. We will never know the full truth. The sea keeps her secrets well, and the pirates took many of theirs to watery graves. The techniques they may have used, steam distillation, clever filtration, rain collection, even lost chemistry, are now, for the most part, common knowledge. But the deeper truth is this: history is not a single story, but a multitude of voices, some shouting, some whispering, some silenced forever. The story of Pirate Water is a reminder that what is possible is not always what is recorded, and that survival, at its most primal, is the ultimate act of rebellion. And so, we are left with a question that lingers like the taste of salt on the wind. Why do we forget? Is it because some truths are too subversive, too threatening to the powers that be? Or is it that, in every age, there are those who must be cast out, their achievements unacknowledged, so that the world can feel safe, ordered? The pirates, once feared, now romanticized, were, above all, survivors. And in their survival, they challenged the certainty of the age in which they lived. Perhaps, as the waves close over the last wooden hulk, sinking into the abyss, somewhere, in a hidden cove, on a forgotten island, or lost in the depths, a final pirate secret waits. Not gold, not a map, but a cask, its contents unmarked, waiting for the day when humanity is desperate enough, audacious enough to try again. To make water from the sea, not for kings, not for empires, but for life itself. And when that day comes, the spirit of the pirate will whisper once more, "They never told you what was possible, but we did." The pirate's legacy in the modern age. From the salt-stained decks of pirate ships, the story of water does not end, it changes form. Today, our seas are no less treacherous, our thirst no less urgent, but the stakes have grown to encompass the fate of nations and the survival of our planet. The pirate's forgotten quest for freshwater is no longer just a tale of survival. It is a parable for our time, a warning and a call to arms, echoing across the centuries. Consider the world beyond your window: reservoirs shrinking, cities rationing, entire regions teetering on the brink of drought. The great hydro-civilizations of our age, engineered cities, vast fields, teeming metropolises, face the same specter that haunted pirates in wood and sail: water scarcity, the curse of the sea. And yet, the old question endures: can we turn our own salt seas into drinkable water, as legend claims they once did? Alchemy. Reborn. Modern desalination. Today, desalination is no longer myth or mystery, it is fact. Huge industrial plants, powered by nuclear reactors or vast solar arrays, now straddle the coastlines of the world, transforming endless brine into sweet, life-giving streams. The technology, once the fevered dream of alchemists and renegades, now quenches the thirst of millions. Israel, Saudi Arabia, Singapore, California, each has staked its future on the ability to pull water from the ocean's embrace. But here, the story twists. The methods are eerily similar to the crude distillation pirates may have attempted: steam, condensation, purification. Only now, the process is scaled to the industrial sublime. What was once a desperate gambit between life and death, an act of defiance against both nature and empire, is now a pillar of the modern world. The pirate spirit, it seems, has found its way into the halls of power, transformed from outlawry to orthodoxy. Yet for all our grand Mac, Heinz and gleaming pipes, the old shadows remain. Modern desalination is expensive, energy-hungry, and not without environmental cost. We have tamed the sea, yes, but at what price? The salt brine left behind, the energy consumed, the hidden toll on marine life. It is as if the ghost of piracy haunts our machines, whispering that every act of mastery comes with sacrifice. The pirate's within us, but the story is deeper still. The true legacy of the pirate is not in the water they drank, but in the spirit they embodied. Pirates, we are told, were lawless, ruthless, anarchic, but they were also free to adapt, to innovate, to survive by any means necessary. They did not wait for permission, nor did they plead with kings for deliverance. They made their own way, or they perished. Now, as we face the water crises of our own age, That pirate spirit is reborn. In engineers, in scientists, in farmers, in families who harvest every drop of rain, who purify, who recycle, who refuse to wait for governments or gods to save them. The modern water warriors are not so different from the pirates of old, resourceful, desperate, daring to dream outside the confines of the possible. They are the ones who refuse to see the sea as enemy, but as a challenge, a puzzle to be solved by human wit, courage, and defiance. And just as the empires of old feared pirates' autonomy, so too do some powers resist decentralized, self-sufficient approaches to water. The battle for water, like all battles, is also a battle for control, for who gets to decide how water is used, distributed, and owned. The story of pirate water is, at heart, a story about who owns the means of life itself. The ultimate riddle. Here, then, is the riddle for our age. Can we live on our own oceans, as the pirates once dreamed of doing? Not as renegades, not as outcasts, but as a people united by need and ingenuity. Can we learn from the forgotten, the marginalized, the erased, those who, in the past, found ways to endure against all odds? The answer, hidden in the mists of history and the cracks of our own society, is perhaps. But it will not be given to us. It must be seized, invented, uncovered, fought for. Just as the pirates once sailed beyond the edges of the map, so must we. The pirate's last whisper. So when you stand at the water's edge, gazing at the great gray mass of ocean, remember, this is not just a story about pirates. It is a story about us, about what happens when necessity meets courage, when desperation breeds invention, and when people refuse to be defined by the boundaries of the possible. The pirates' voices may have been silenced, their methods lost, their names forgotten, but their challenge endures. The sea is not our enemy, nor is it our prison. It is our oldest, greatest riddle, waiting for those bold enough to solve it, ingenious enough to survive it, desperate enough to dare. Perhaps one day we will remember how to turn seawater into drinking water, not with giant machines, but with the cunning of the outlaw, the wisdom of the forgotten, and the perseverance of the human spirit. And on that day, the ghost of piracy will rise, not with a cutlass, but with a cup raised high, to the sea, to survival, to the unstoppable quest for life itself. Let us imagine, for a moment, the year 2130. The world has changed. Water is more precious than ever. The coastlines have crept inland, and the last of the traditional reservoirs are running dry. On a rocky peninsula, jutting out into the Atlantic, you will find, not a fortress or a city, but a shipyard unlike any other. Here, the past has returned to speak to the future. The sails are solar sheets, the hulls patrolled by drones, and the crews mixed with scavengers, inventors, and sailors from every nation. These are not pirates in the old sense. There is no Jolly Roger, no cutlass, but something new and yet hauntingly familiar. In the center of the yard, a weathered captain, a woman whose ancestors once sailed the Caribbean, stands before an assembly of engineers and scientists, local farmers and urban refugees. She shows them something strange, a contraption cobbled together from scrap metal, glass tubes, and salvaged electronics. It is a distillation device inspired by the crude designs of the pirates, but rebuilt for this new age. This, she says, her voice steady and quiet, was how our forebears survived at sea, when the world gave them nothing but salt and sun. She pours seawater into a chamber, lights a flame beneath, and waits. The crowd watches, skeptical, expectant. Minutes pass. Then, drop by drop, the first trickle of condensed fresh water fills a glass. The moment is simple, but profound. It is not just about water. It is about memory. Memory of resilience, of rebellion, of refusing to accept the limits of fate. The device is not a miracle. It is too small, too slow for a thirsty world. But it is a beginning. Across the globe, in cities and villages, in deserts and floating villages, others are searching for lost wisdom, for old solutions, for ways to survive on the margins. These modern outcasts, water pirates, some call them, are not raiding ships, but raiding the past, seeking what others have forgotten. Their quest is different from the empire builders and industrialists. They do not seek profit nor control, but survival and balance. They honor the old pirates' defiance, but also their pragmatism. The knowledge that, sometimes, the answers lie not in waiting for rescue, but in taking up the tool, the book, the whispered secret, and daring to try. And so, the last pirate secret is revealed, not as treasure, but as a story. The story that what is hidden, what is forgotten, what is dismissed, may one day be the key to survival. That the past, if searched deeply enough, may whisper a way forward, even when all seems lost. In the end, it is not the myths of gold that matter, nor the legends of terror, but the persistence of wisdom, the courage to remember, and the will to reinvent. The pirates' true legacy is not in the ships they lost, but in the spirit they carried. The spirit that says, when the world turns away, we turn to the sea, and we make it ours.